I was on top of the world. I'm in this rock band. We're touring all over the Pacific Northwest. I had everything. Until I didn't. There were entire years of my life where I was either drunk or high or both every waking moment of every single day.
Did you ever have a moment of time in the middle of any of that where God was a thought to you at all?
No. Nope.
You have a very powerful story of what God has really brought you through. And I know that the details of your life, although they're hard sometimes to talk through, I know that there's people listening that are going to take something away from that really could help make a change in their life. Start us off at the very beginning of your life, Jonny. What was life like for you growing up as a kid?
So I was born into a working class family in northern Minnesota. My father worked for a paper mill, and that was a great job. It had benefits. They owned a house. They bought their first house for like $8,000. So they had a 2-bedroom house. It was great. And a few years into their marriage and their work, I was born. And they were happy. And my dad was working, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom and took care of me. And within a couple of years, they got pregnant again with a girl. And things are moving right along. My mom gets all the way into her 9th month and goes to the hospital to deliver the baby. And because I had been born by C-section, and the doctor thought that maybe this time my mom could have a natural birth, and she wasn't dilating in time. And the doctor neglected to just do the C-section. He thought if we just give it more time, you'll dilate and we'll be able to get this baby. We'll drug you up a little more and get you dilating. There's medicine you can take to dilate. Mm-hmm. And they were pumping that into my mom. And my mom was scared. She's told me this. She said, something's not right. You guys just need to get this baby out. And after hours and hours of her begging and them waiting for this medicine, they realized this is not going to happen this way. So they did a C-section. And the baby had the cord wrapped around her neck. Mm. And they delivered her. But she was oxygen deprived for a very long time. And after a couple of days, they had to pull the plug on her, and she died. Mm. And that completely changed their relationship. I don't remember a lot of it as a little kid. I just remember my mom and dad both being sad, Mm-hmm. My mom couldn't handle the pain of it at all. And she was it was eating her alive, and she knew it. And she seen it eating my dad alive. And she said she went out in the backyard, and she got on her knees, and she just stuck her hands out in the air, and she was like, God, I can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And she was, I don't know why I prayed to God. I just know that, in my pain at that time, it was the only thing I could think to do. And she goes, something supernatural happened. She said there wasn't an audible voice or anything, but that she felt some of that pain lifted from her. And I came out at this time, she tells me, and gave her a big hug. And she realized in that moment that, she needed to be better for her kids. Mm. And she was able to start taking joy in, me and my younger brother.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of memories of my dad from that time. He never drank, never once. But when my sister died, he didn't know how to handle that grief.
Yeah.
So he started drinking. And they went to court because it was medical malpractice. And over that next year of it being in court, they got pregnant again, and they had another boy. And they won their case, and they got what to them seemed like life-changing money.
Sure.
And that's when we started moving around. I think my dad's drinking had made it pretty hard for him to try to keep this job. By that point in time, he became a pretty heavy drinker pretty quickly. He would, a lot of his dreams involved getting large quantities of drugs and then being able to sell them for some big payoff and becoming wealthy.
Did you ever, was what told you, or do you remember ever like actually seeing that?
It's stuff my mom has revealed to me,
Yeah.
as an adult now. And at the same time, like he'd get drugs and then use the drugs and then never actually sell enough to make any of the money back.
I know what that life is like.
I eventually do too. And at the same time, he's pissing away all of the, the money from the settlement on drinking and not working and paying the bills because he doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we moved to Florida when they had run out of money completely in Hawaii. In fact, my mom told me that my grandmother had to purchase them plane tickets for all of us to fly back to Florida, my father's mom. So we flew back to Florida, and they really couldn't afford a place. So my dad got the great idea to get some tents, and we lived in a park for a couple of years.
Years.
Yeah. My brother and I had a tent that we lived in, and my mom and dad lived in the tent right next to us. And again, it is crazy. It sounds crazy to live in tents for years. But in Florida, the climate's relatively safe. And when storms would come through, my mom would bring us underneath the pavilion. And she was always good at treating it like it was just this extended camping trip. And that is how I remember it.
Were you guys school age at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess the school didn't have any problem with it. We would receive mail there. So, and this is in the 80s.
Right. Life is different.
I guess so. Again, I'm 6 and 7 years old. And my mom would try to get my dad set up with jobs, but he just couldn't not drink. And he would not drink and get a job for a couple of days, but as soon as he got paid, then he was thinking, we're on to the next thing, and he'd be scheming to try to get the next come up. And in his scheming would kind of drink away the money. And my mom was doing the same kind of work there where she'd bring her kids. And my mom laughs about it now. She's like, it wasn't that bad. When storms would come, we'd go in the pavilion and they had a shower and they had plug-ins. So remember we had a little black and white TV. We'd plug in the TV, Johnny. And I'm like, yeah, that's really weird, Mom. I don't have any friends who have this story.
Not a one.
She's like, it wasn't bad. We all had a good time. And I'm like, yeah, it probably could have been better, Ma. But, I don't remember it being really bad. So I don't want to push on it too hard. It was what life was, ultimately. But as my dad's drinking went years in, and these schemes weren't paying off, he would be getting more upset. And him and my mom would fight. And fighting was starting to become physical. And my mom didn't like it, obviously. And she wasn't the type of woman that was going to take being an abusive wife. Mm-hmm. So at one point in time, she took my brother and I and took us to a relative's house, my grandmother's house. And we stayed there for a little while. I don't remember how long. My mom kind of devised a plan. Like when she gets back, she had set up this job for my dad. There was supposed to be this excellent landscaping job that would have been for this organization and it would have been repeating. So it would have been solid work for a long time moving forward, building this landscaping company. And rather than going, he took the money that she left and called some buddies up. They showed up. They bought a bunch of drugs, thought they were going to go sell all these drugs and make this big deal. And they're drinking and partying when my mom comes back. And she sees everybody partying and she pulls my dad off the side and was like, hey, how'd that job go? And he's like, nah, I got something better going. And she's like, I can't do this with you anymore. And my dad, to his disgrace, was like, what are you going to do? And she goes, I'm going to take the boys and I'm going to leave. I'm going to go be with my mom. We're going to go live with her and try to start something somewhere else. And my dad was relieved. And he goes, good. I want to go with these guys anyways. I'm going to see this thing through. You'll regret it. And my mom was freaking crushed. And she took us and she left. And I didn't see my dad again then for a couple of years. My mom moved us back up to Minnesota where her mom lived, and we stayed with them. And she met another man who is now my stepdad. And maybe 2 years later, my mom got a call from my dad, my biological dad. And he said, I've got my stuff together. I've got a job, I've got an apartment, and I'd like to see my boys. So my mom and stepdad put together some dough and flew myself and my brother down here to Florida. And turns out that my dad had an apartment, but it was in a pretty crappy neighborhood. But he's walking us down the street and he points at this house, which happens to be like catty corner from him. And he says, a bad man lives there. And he goes, it's the kind of man that likes to hurt children. If you see him, you run, find me. But you don't let this guy come up and talk to you. He's going to try to, but don't let him talk to your brother. And I was like, all right.
How old were you?
7.
Jeez.
And we hang out that day, and that night he had to go to work. And he didn't have a babysitter. Right before he's got to get going, he's showing me how to lock the door, and he's saying, you guys just watch TV, go to sleep, and by the time you wake up, I'll be home. And he goes, Jonny, follow me into the bedroom. So I follow him into the bedroom, and I remember he opened up the window, took the blinds off the window, and pointed over at that house. He goes, you know that bad man that's over there? You need to protect your brother tonight. Don't let anything happen. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to lock the doors when I leave. Do not unlock any of the doors. All the windows are locked. Don't let anybody in here. I'm like, okay. And then he pulls up the pillow on the bed, and he had a revolver pistol. And he opens it up, and he takes all the bullets out, and he hands it to me, and he kind of spins it around, makes sure there's no bullets in there. He hands it to me. And he goes, if that guy tries to get up in this house, you take this thing and you put it in his belly. And he grabbed my hand. He had it in my hand, and he pulled it into his belly, and he goes, and you pull the trigger. He goes, do it. So I did. And then he's like, that's exactly what you do. And you just keep pulling it until it stops making noise. And I was like, all right.
Do you remember at 7 years old, like when what
scared.
were you feeling at that point in time?
I was scared. I was super scared. I didn't sleep at all that night.
I was going to ask you that. Did you sleep or
No.
did you just like...
So I sat there all night, and I didn't sleep. Or if I did, I don't remember it. But I knew it was starting to get light outside. And I heard somebody in the door, and I was scared, and I was locked up, and I was on the couch, and my brother was on the floor. And I was locked up, and I just kind of like, you remember when you close your eyes just enough, but you can still kind of see through them, but you feel like your eyes are closed,
Yeah.
but you're just squinting? I remember doing that, and my dad came in the door. He unlocked it and came in the door, and I closed my eyes to pretend like I was sleeping. And he kind of looked at both of us, and then he walked around and went to his room. I'm sure he was tired from his night, and I finally fell asleep. And I think he had a bunch of plans. Like, I feel like he wanted to take us to Disneyland or Disney World, whatever one's here. And my mom had made him promise to call every day. So he took us down to the gas station. This is when they still had payphones.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking to my mom on the phone first, and then he hands the phone to me. And I remember hearing my mom's voice, and I broke out crying. And she was like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I was like, I'm scared. And I started telling her this story, and I see my dad. He's like freaking out, like, oh, shut up. And I couldn't stop crying. And she could tell I was scared, obviously, because I said I was. And she goes, put your dad back on the phone. So she put him back on the phone. And she clearly told him that you need to take them to the airport right now. So he took us to the airport, got us on a plane, and then I didn't see him again for over 20 years.
Wow.
He would call from time to time. And when he would call, he would always like bawl on the phone and tell me how sorry he was. I hated it. I hated his calls, man.
Did you feel any
No.
empathy for him at all?
Hatred.
Yeah.
I would just be like, I would be upset with my mom, in fact, when she would put me on the phone with them. I'd be like, why do you make me listen to this guy? This sucks. Who is this? Who's this guy that you make me talk to once a year who cries on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
And finally she said to him, like, stop calling. Yeah, these kids don't want to talk to you. They don't know you. And, from there on, he went on to be homeless and severe alcoholic, living under bridges and such.
Wow.
And we moved on with our life. Living with my dad was my stepdad, he's a hard worker. And he was able to get us up to he was able to buy a house a few years into being with my mom. He was the kind of guy that like worked a job and then went to night school. Like I love that aspect of my dad. And that's what I'm going to call him from now on because he's my dad.
He's your dad.
And moving up from there, I always just kind of felt like I had to prove myself. I don't remember how. My brother came home one time, my younger brother came home one time and had some weed. We're like 13, 14. And he had stolen it from his mom. My stepdad's ex-wife. And we smoked that, my brother and I and a buddy of ours. And I got way too high. Hallucinating high.
At 14 years old.
At 14.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. And I was like, I'm never going to do this again. But little did I know, the next weekend, some of the other cool kids were smoking, and I didn't want to not be cool, so I smoked again. In fact, that time, it wasn't so bad. And it kind of chilled me out. I was always very tight and anxious, but when I smoked the second time, it was the opposite of that. It really freed me up. And I felt funny. I remember telling a bunch of jokes, and my mind was really clever that day. And these older kids that we were hanging out with were laughing. They thought I was awesome and funny and smart. And it was older kids. And that's kind of approval that I was always looking for, was someone older to go, you have value.
Yeah.
And I thought it was because of the weed. So I started smoking all the time. But I remember going to this party. This is kind of where my story changes. I remember going to this party in 11th grade. And I had a great friend, Russell, who in secrecy had been taking guitar lessons. And my God, man, did he become good at the guitar. And then one day he was like, hey, there's going to be this party this weekend. You guys got to come. I'm going to play with a band. I'm like, great, we're there. We go to this party. It's a huge kegger. Everyone in the county's there, it seems like. And they go up on stage and they play. And it's some guy that was a senior that year, and we were in 11th grade. He was the singer. And they played only cover songs. But it was awesome. And this is the time that the movie The Doors came out. And for me, that was a time where I started taking LSD, mushrooms, a lot of psychedelics. And part of it, I don't want to blame it on that movie exactly. It was around in that time, and people were taking it. So I took it.
It was a very influential movie at that point in time for that. I remember when that movie came out as well and had the same experience. I was like, well, maybe this is a door I want to go down to.
Yeah.
I get that.
I was compelled. When I seen this guy who I had
Val
known.
Kilmer was amazing in that movie, by the way.
Yeah, phenomenal.
It's awesome.
This guy that was a senior that went up and did this, when he was done, it was like he was glowing as he walked around the party. Everybody thought he was so awesome. And it was very similar to Val Kilmer's version of Jim Morrison. Whenever the camera was on Val Kilmer, you felt like that was some messiah, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how they portray it. I thought the same thing at this party, and I thought, no matter what happens in this world, I'm doing that thing. And that started that path. I would hang out with my buddy Russell every opportunity I possibly could. I remember approaching him the first time and saying, hey, man, we should start a band. And he goes, you don't play an instrument. I said, I'll sing. And he goes, can you sing? And I was like, no, but I'll figure it out. He's like, all right. I romanticized it in my head, like, this is what I'm going to do. We graduate high school. We move up to Minneapolis. Russell lives right down the road from me. And I'm over at his house every opportunity I can. And his drinking's getting worse. He's getting into more trouble. He's getting arrested frequently. Nonetheless, we started playing music in his apartment as often as we could. And we wrote a couple of songs. And I started feeling like someday this is going to happen for me. Like, this is kind of the genesis of my rock stardom, my musical career, my life in music, let's say. And I met a woman at this time. And we met. And it was kind of this serendipitous way that we met. It was kind of funny and beautiful in its own way. And within a couple of days, we had sex. And I seen her a couple other times from there. By the 5th week, she showed up at my apartment and was crying. I invited her in and sat her down. We went in my room. I had a roommate. Went in my room, and she said, I'm pregnant.
Oh, man.
And my first thought was like, how do I even know it's me? And my second thought was like, how do we get rid of this baby? How do I get her to have an abortion? But I couldn't muster up the words to say that. So I said, what do you want to do here? And she was like, I'm going to have this baby one way or another. You can be a part of it or not. But if you choose not, then, that's your choice. I won't come after you or any of that. I could see in her face and in her eyes, like she was hoping that I wasn't going to say, get on out of here.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I said, all right, we'll make this thing work.
As you reflect back on that, when she told you and she had that conversation with you, did you have flashbacks of your dad at that point in time?
No.
It never even crossed your mind?
No, I was way too selfish.
Yeah.
All I was thinking is, I'm just starting this band with this buddy of mine. We've written like 3 or 4 songs. We're talking about trying to go play these songs somewhere. We might have this guy that's going to be a drummer, and now this broad is here, and she's pregnant, and she's going to ruin everything. That's what I thought. And I got a tiny little brownstone with this woman. And we were together for that whole time, living in this tiny little place. And she believed in me still. She believed that, like, music could be what I'd want to do, and I'd still meet up with my buddy Russell and try to perform, but it was less time now, because I was spending time with her. And Russell kept getting in trouble, and I realized that maybe that was a dead end. But I still wanted to see this dream through, and I knew that, like, if I'm going to do this thing with her, I'd rather do it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And we had heard this Sublime song. It's like, riots on the streets of Miami, riots on the streets of Chicago. You know that song?
I know that song. Love that song.
There's a part in the song where he says it in the background. He goes, Eugene, Oregon.
Yep.
And it's like way in the distance of the back of that song. And I heard it, Eugene, Oregon. And I was like, I wonder what Eugene, Oregon's like. So I started looking it up. And she had, I moved out there first. So she stayed around in Minnesota for another 2 months. And I went out to Oregon. I got a job. And I made this little flyer like the second day I was there, and I went to the Guitar Center. And the flyer was like, singer looking to play in a band. Here's some of the bands I like. Stone Temple Pilots. It was very grunge. It was like...
Tool.
No, I didn't even write Tool at the time,
Wow.
which is a funny thing. It was like Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam. Soundgarden.
Yeah.
Let's say like that. And then my name and my number, and you could rip off all the little pieces. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I go over to the Guitar Center and I pin it on there. And there's a dozen different things. There's guitarist, looking for guitarists, looking for drummers. And then one at the very bottom looking for a singer. And I snatched one of those things off there. I went home and I called. And I talked to who became my good buddy, Kyle. And he was like, yeah, hey. And he goes, oh, is this Jonny? And then he reads his phone number back to me. I go, yeah. And he goes, I was just up at Guitar Center. I pulled your tab too. And I was like, oh, that can't be a coincidence. And he's like, yeah, we're going to meet together on Tuesday. You should come over and let's see what you got. And I was like, great, love to. So Tuesday comes around and I'm nervous. Now, I'm not a every single day drinker at this time. I like to drink on the weekends. I didn't really drink during the week. So this is a Tuesday night, but I'm nervous. And I know that like back in the day when I'd sing with Russell, a couple of beers, a little bit of weed, I'm dialed in. So I do that. And I go over and then I sang to them. And I wasn't a great singer, but the lyrics were, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And they were inspired and they were moved. And they said, you got the gig. And we started doing that. And that was Kyle and Daryl. And then we ended up getting a drummer shortly thereafter. And we became Grinch. That was the name of our band. Kyle came up with it. I kind of thought it was a stupid name. And then he reminded me that there's bands called Korn that are famous. And I said, okay, your point is taken. And we started practicing all the time. Like we would meet at 8 a.m. on a Saturday and we'd stay in there till midnight.
Oh, wow.
All day.
Just writing and playing.
Just playing. And he had a studio already that it was a little storage thing that he had rented. It was like, back in the day, it was like $200 to rent a storage unit. Maybe not even that much. It was cheap. And we just jam in there. It had power. We brought all of our equipment in there. We'd stand about this close as you and I, and just play and play and play and play and play and play. But the thing was, man, they like to smoke weed too. They like to drink too. So we'd get to this place and 8 a.m., I'd stop at the little corner store. I'd get a 40 and then meet them there and drink the 40 all day. And we're writing and smoking. And you'd come out of there and it's like 12 hours later, like, wow. But we had written a bunch of stuff and it was cool. We did that for like a year. It was the coolest thing in the world. And it was everything I ever wanted to do. And very early on, I was like, this is what I was put on this planet for. And I just poured my heart, everything into it. Nothing else mattered. And that's important because this woman that lived at the house that I also lived at with this child that she had birthed, they also didn't matter. I just didn't care. And I'd go home and I'd be home, but I was always thinking about that and I was always talking about that and it would just annoy her to no end. And I think part of her heart was like, I wish something would happen so that he could give this up and be part of our thing here. This is an important thing. And I didn't see it that way. And it made for a very hard relationship for her and I.
Do you feel like when in those years, do you feel like you ever connected with your son? Like a father to son?
Yeah.
Do you remember moments where like it was like
Absolutely.
You felt joy and love with that baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
And present.
Yeah.
There were times like that.
Okay.
But a big part of me thought like they were secondary. You know? They weren't bad, especially him. It wasn't his fault.
Right.
And I didn't see it that way. I didn't have any anger or upset. I wasn't.
Well, there's this part where it's all that is usually taught behavior. So it's like, you know, if I didn't receive that kind of like love and affection from my father, then very often it's very hard for you to like treat your own child that way. And so there's just this disconnect that happens there.
Right.
And so that's why I'm always wondering in this story, I've always wondered this in the story of you with your son. Do you remember times where it's just like this, like, I want to do things differently than what my dad did? Do you ever remember feelings like that at all?
No. He just wasn't. I never thought about him. I just didn't. I think I still really wanted to impress my mom and dad. So I'd always kind of like, I'd put 5 on 3 with everything I said. So if we played a show, there was 200 people there when there was 50 people there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always just kind of playing everything up because I wanted them to be impressed.
Sure.
But we started playing shows and everything. I want to say this is so key, obviously, is like we're practicing on Tuesday night. That meant we were drinking and smoking weed. On Thursday night, same thing. Saturday, all day. And that would bleed into Sunday. So I'd wake up on Sunday, have a bit of a hangover. I knew the hair of the dog's going to get rid of that. Start drinking, start smoking. I'm just around the house anyways. I ain't got anywhere to go. Always trying to convince my son's mom to want to drink.
Did she drink and smoke?
Yeah, but not like me. as long as I could get her to like have a drink, then I felt like she's not judging me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She couldn't because she's doing it too.
Yeah. And right. And all my rejecting her, she started developing friends with other males. And I hated that. And I'd be like, what are you doing hanging out with this guy? You know what this guy wants to do to you? And she'd always be like, you're being paranoid. And as we're playing shows, she would come to as many shows as she could. Sometimes she had to stay home because we play late and we have a kid. And it was always on her, make it work. If you want to come out, you better get a babysitter. I was just very dismissal and pushed off to the side. And she would come to the shows and there'd be chicks there, obviously. And they thought we were great. And that was the lead singer of the band. So that comes with a certain whatever. Mm-hmm. And I loved that. That made me feel valuable, right? Which is always that thing I'm searching for. And she hated it. And more she hated it more and more. And I could see it all the time in her face. And in the way she reacted to everything. And I didn't care. Because this is what I was going to do. See, I'm still at the house. I'm still here all the time, right?
Right.
That was my excuse. She's like, but you're not here. All you have to want to do is be there and think about that stuff. Mm-hmm. You're not here with us. And rumors started moving around that like some guys knew her a little more intimately than just friendship. And I packed my crap one day and said, I'm not doing this with you anymore. And I moved out. And we both hated it, but we were both stuck in this cycle in a way. And she was the wiser of the two of us. And she made a plan to pack up all her stuff and take our son and move back to Minnesota. And I had a great friend that lived there. We grew up together. We were best friends. He'd come out twice a year and stay with us. And she flew back to Minnesota and started sleeping with him.
One of your good friends.
One of my best friends. And that, for all the different stuff that had went on, that one really hurt. That one hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And it totally messed me up. And her being gone under those circumstances, I started drinking a lot. There was no longer a leash that meant I didn't have to pick up a kid at any point in time.
Did you miss your son? If you're honest? Or did you feel free?
Initially, I felt very free.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would miss him a lot. And sometimes I would call and cry on the phone.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I bet he hated it.
Bet he did.
And, but I was doing my thing and it was going to work out. And one day he was going to see that his dad did something awesome. And he would see why I did everything I did to get to this place. Mm-hmm. And, we're playing shows and we're getting more popular. We're now regionally successful and traveling all throughout the Pacific Northwest. We're in Washington, Idaho, Oregon. We're in California. We're in Nevada. We're in Texas. We're in Wyoming. We're everywhere. Playing all the time. We're going on month-long tours and playing with big acts. We're going from 500-person venues to 20,000 people venues. Things really seem like they're tracking that direction.
Yeah.
And my drinking is accelerating and my drug use is very much accelerating. I don't remember when somebody introduced me to pain pills, but boy, those changed the game. I didn't have to drink as much. And when I did drink, it was just that right amount of harmonious high for me to think that I was the most creative and the most free and the best version of myself, unencumbered by the insecurities that I clearly had. But I would miss practices that we were supposed to have, show up on the wrong day. I was forgetting lyrics when we were playing songs that we wrote. There are lyrics, and I'd forget them, fall over, unreliable and annoying. And when I was supposed to be at places, I wouldn't be, and the guys wouldn't know how to get a hold of me. And they were not happy about it. And I'd met this woman, and for a period of time, being with her had helped me to kind of curb some of that, because now I had at least somebody that cared again, that was in the house, that cared. She had her own apartment, but she would stay with me a lot, and I would stay with her a lot, so I had some accountability. I couldn't just wake up in the middle of the night and take a couple of shots and go back to sleep. So this actually did reel me back for this very short period of time. But it was short-lived. Within 6 months of dating her, I was back to drinking morning, noon, and night again. 'Cause, that initial stage, I wanted to impress her, and I didn't want her thinking I was an alcoholic. Sure. Even though I wasn't conceptually thinking of myself that way.
How much of your drinking and drug use was you wanting to be creative, and how much of it was addiction now?
Now it's all... I'm telling myself it's still how I get creative. So I'm getting creative with my drug use.
There's probably some truth to it, right?
There's for sure some truth to it.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I need to add other drugs in, because I'm taking so much alcohol, so much downers, that I need some uppers. So it's like, does anybody have harder drugs, cocaine, a few times meth, so that I could come back up, because I'd be so down. And life becomes very chaotic when you start mixing a lot of drugs together all the time.
Yes, it does.
And I'm hanging out with a lot of people that did these kind of drugs and sold these kind of drugs. And I kept thinking, it's just any minute now, some major record label is going to knock on the door and go, let's bring you down to Los Angeles, record that album that's going to send you on a world tour. And people around us told us that. And we had a minor record label that had paid for an album to be done, paid for all the studio time, everything like that. So we were trending in this direction. But the guys weren't happy with me. And neither was this woman, who, in hindsight, I realize so very frequently was trying so very hard to get me to stop drinking and to occupy me with other things. But the minute she would go to work, I'd go down to the corner mart and grab a 6-pack of, Natty's Ice.
Cheapest beer you possibly can, man.
Get a 6-pack for $4, smash those. And then I would play all these games with hiding beers and hiding hard alcohol so that she couldn't find it. So that when she came home, there was still the same amount of beer in the fridge. It was twisted. And that was what my whole life was this 3-card Monte game, where I'm always sliding things around so that nobody thinks I am what I actually am, including myself. And one day she called me and she said, she's supposed to be coming down to my house to stay for the weekend. And she goes, I'm not going to come this weekend. And she said, I think you have a really bad drinking problem. And until we can kind of figure that out, I'm not going to be coming down. And I was super bummed out about that. I thought things were going so well. And she just was not happy. And the next morning, I get a knock on my door, and it's my bassist, one of my good buddies who I just respected so much, Kyle. And it's 7:30 in the morning, and he says, hey, you go for a walk with me? And I was like, don't you got work? And he's like, yeah, but I got a minute. I just wanted to talk to you about something. And I was like, okay. I get my shoes on. We go for this little walk, maybe take about 10 steps. And he turns over to me. He goes, you been drinking? And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, he just kind of puts his hands up and, bobs his head a bit. And I go, yeah. And he goes, this morning? And I go, yeah. And he goes, buddy, you have a really bad drinking problem. And I was like, I'm trying, man. I'm trying to work on it. I start running some excuses. And he's like, I've talked to all the guys, and I'm here to let you know that we're going to take a break. And you need to try to figure out what you can do with this. And I'd like to help you. I have an uncle who was a severe alcoholic. A lot of it reminds me of you, Jonny. And I go, well, you drink a lot too. And he goes, I don't drink anywhere near as much as you. You know, I don't drink all week. Yes, I drink with you guys on the weekends. But he goes, even then, I haven't drank the last 3 shows. Have you noticed that at all? And I was like, oh, you did. He goes, I know what I did and what I didn't do. And he goes, I would like to take you to AA. Would you like to go? And I said, I'll go. And he goes, I'll pick you up today after work. And he went to work.
Did you feel like you wanted to go just because you didn't want the band thing to stop, or did you feel like you wanted to go because you actually felt like you had a problem?
I did not feel like I had a problem. I didn't even know what a problem was. I thought things were working out. I was going to appease him.
Yeah.
So we keep everything rolling.
Yeah.
Go to a couple of these things, and then we'll pretend like this didn't happen, you know? Come on. The record label's going to knock on the door any minute, fool. Would you be this crazy to throw everything away?
Chill out, bro.
So he comes and picks me up. We go to this meeting, and there was a guy that was sitting next to us. And I should say this, after he left, I went into my freezer and fridge and everywhere, and I dumped everything out. Like, this woman's now not with me, and this dude's yelling at me. So I thought, like, you know what, I'll just take a break. I did think that. So I dump all this stuff out. I don't have no liquor. He picks me up at like 6, whatever time. We go to this meeting. By then, I'm kind of shaky. And I kind of don't know what it is, and my body feels weird, tight and not right. And I just feel kind of like hot and sweaty, but cold at the same time. Kind of like I'm coming down with something. I think I might have even said that to Kyle. And there's a guy sitting next to me, and he goes, hey, how long's it been? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, when's the last time you had a drink? And I go, this morning. But I'm gonna stop. And he goes, you ain't gonna make it. I was like, F you. How dare you? You don't know me. Frankly, it was what I needed to hear.
Think he was intentional about it, or do you
No,
think
I think he was a jerk.
he was just being a jerk?
Yeah, he was not a nice guy. I seen him hereafter. I went back to a bunch of meetings because I was going to prove him wrong. And we go to the meeting. We sit through the whole meeting. We leave. Kyle drops me off at the house. And he's like, would you like to go again? I said, yep. And he goes, all right, pick you up tomorrow. Great. Somebody had told him that like the first week you need to go every day, something like that. So that was kind of the plan. 8, 9, 10 o'clock rolls around, and like the shaking's getting worse, and like my hands are like locking up, like locking in like this claw fashion, and I'm like trying to stretch them out, and like my back is locking up.
How long are you without a drink now?
Well, if it's 10 o'clock and I stop drinking about 7 a.m., 15 hours.
Okay.
And I'm like hearing stuff in the other room, and I'm going to check to see what I'm hearing in the room. Now I realize I'm having like auditory hallucinations, and I'm seeing like little like flashing things in my periphery too. As I'd walk from one room to another, I'd turn the light on, and it would like flash weird. And when I'd turn it off, it would like stay in my retina. And I'd see like things kind of moving out here in the periphery. And like my hands are just not working, and my arms aren't working, and my legs aren't working right. It feels like when I'm walking weird. Like I feel weak, like I'm shaky. And I'm scared. I'm super scared because I don't know what the heck's going on. I've never had anything like this before in my life. And I'm not tired, but I'm exhausted. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And I had some Tylenol PMs. So I took a couple of Tylenol PMs and I went and laid in the bed. But I'm just wide awake, and like my body hurts, and I'm cold and I'm hot at the same time. I'm like, I'll take a shower. I take a shower. I go back, lay in the bed. Same thing. Now it's midnight. And I think, like a regular adult dose is 2. I can take 4. So I take 2 more, laying in the bed. And like, I'd start to like feel like maybe I was going to doze off and I'd hear something and it would scare me. And like, then I'm just wide awake again and I'm like really shaking now. And like trying to talk, like my voice sounded shaky. And I'm by myself in my apartment and I'm talking out loud to myself and I'm like, what is going on? And it's like, oh, and it sounds weird in my own ears. And like colors aren't right and nothing's right. And I'm hot and I'm sick. And I puke. And then I just couldn't stop puking. It was like every little bit I thought I'd just puke. About 3 a.m. right across the street from me was this place called Cahoots, which was like this hippie version of a non-governmental building where you could go if you were having a freak out on drugs. Like guys that would take too much acid or mushrooms would go there, and these hippies would come out and they'd like help you. Hey man, it's going to be okay. And I went over there and pounded on the door, and they had one of those little slide things, and they opened a little slide. And I was like, because it's nighttime. It's the middle of the night. Who's this crazy? And I explained myself to this guy, and he's like, heavy drinker? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, it's called the DTs. You're right in the middle of it. He goes, it's going to take a couple of days. Go home, drink some, put some sugar in some water and drink that. That'll help. But he goes, if you've been drinking as bad as it looks like, it's going to be a while. He goes, if I let you in, we have to do a in check, and you're stuck here for 72 hours. And I was like, no, I'll be good. So I left. I did what he said, but I didn't sleep. By about day 3, the shaking had stopped. And maybe day 4, I could actually eat something. So for about 3 days, I just kind of felt sick, like flu sick, but with these shakes. And within maybe 36 hours, the hallucination stuff stopped. And within like 4 or 5 days, I would sleep some of the night.
Did you ever have a moment of time in the middle of any of that where God was a thought to you at all?
Nope.
Kind of like your experience your mom had?
No. Nope. And they talked about a higher power.
That's why I'm wondering, like in your AA experience, like
the guy. So right away they say get someone to talk to. So I found a guy that I could relate to, and Kyle only had to go to like 3 meetings. I met this guy, and then this guy said he'd meet me at all the meetings, and Kyle didn't have to go anymore. But I went for 60 days, and I'm constantly calling the guys in the band like, hey guys, 30 days. Let's get this thing rolling again. You guys want to meet up on Tuesday? And they're like, nah, we need more time. One of them finally, Daryl came and told me at one point in time, he goes, we're going to try out a couple other singers. And he goes, so, let's chill out. You just work on you. We're going to do something else. And I was freaking crushed. God, I was crushed.
Yeah, this thing that you're going to be validated by, that you're going to prove to your son.
It was everything.
Prove to
everything
everybody.
I had done for 8 years of my life, and if you've only lived 27 years by this point in time, 28 years, 8 years is a lot of that small portion.
Big chunk of your life, man.
And I was so mad. And I started drinking again. And I called my mom. I called this girl too, I should say. She wasn't interested in being together no more either. She had moved on. She had some guys she was seeing. And I just didn't have nothing. I had nothing to be out there for. And I called my mom, and she said, why don't you come up here? And we'll help you get started. So I moved up with my parents.
Back to Minnesota.
And man, when you start living like this, like when you do a move like that, you don't pack up a U-Haul and bring all your stuff home.
Bring a trash bag full of your clothes.
You bring a trash bag full of your clothes. You give away all your stuff. I didn't have anything super great, but I gave away everything. I brought everything out into the front yard of this apartment I had and let people walk up and give me whatever they thought it was worth.
I won't tell the story, but one of my favorite stories ever is
the guy? Yeah. That's not for UPD. Any audience member listening to this, feel free to ask me about the guy who came up at my yard sale in Eugene, Oregon, and I will happily tell you a very crazy story that is absolutely true. Yeah, so I went back to Minnesota, and very quickly my parents realized that my drinking was way out of control. And they realized they couldn't help me. And at some point in time, my mom had spoken with my biological father and found out that he had been sober for a number of years. And he had kind of gotten his life back on track in a way. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know, I think it'd be good for you to go down there and maybe he can help you because this is very bad. I mean, to look at me at that time, and there's pictures, I was very, very sick. I'm a 200-pound guy now. I was about 135 pounds. Jeez. Very skinny, very hollowed out. My eyes were very sunken in. My tongue was white. My teeth would bleed all the time. My gums. And I was dying. And I'd seen a doctor at one point in time because my stomach hurt all the time. And he basically said as much to me. He said, you keep doing this, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And I went down and took that plane, and my dad's new wife met me at the airport because he was working.
This is the first time you've seen your dad for
23 years. Yeah. And we get to the house, and he was there, and it was super weird. He was a super weird guy. It's a stranger that looked a lot like me in his own way. And man, I hate confrontation. I've always hated like that kind of like that initial phase of we have to somehow deal with this big pile of poop that's been left in front of both of us for all this time. I hate that moment. And it was awful. And he said, if you get down here, you can't drink. So like I drank up until the flight. I drank on the flight. And then the minute we got to the airport, his new wife picked me up and there was no drinking. So I'm meeting him and the alcohol's wearing off and I'm starting to get sick again. And he goes, it's all right. We got a room for you. And for the first few days I stayed with him and was just very sick, like you are when you come off daily 24-hour a day alcohol addiction. All the things I just told you about were happening. And the seizures, these are like hard seizures. Because like when you get to the level of drinking I do, I would take a shot of vodka in the morning and it would hit so hard and I would get so sick that I'd puke it right back up again. And then I would take another one because I knew I wouldn't have to puke again for like 90 seconds. And I would just like try not to think about it. I'd walk around and my mouth would water. Like I felt like I was going to puke, and I'd hold down these pukes just so I could hold the alcohol in my system. Because once it actually settled in my system, then I could be okay and level back out a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'd been in that cycle for months again. So my body's like super duper addicted. Anyways, we're here in Florida. I'm staying with him. And he says, his mom, who I also hadn't seen in 23 years, lives right down the road. And she's got a room. We're going to put you in there after this initial phase. So I went and stayed with her. She was awesome.
Do you remember having any conversations with your dad then about?
No.
Nothing.
I think he was always dreading the conversation about the pile of poop too.
So we're just not going to talk about it.
We're just not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about that time.
Did you have any conversations with him in that time?
Later. Yeah. Once I lived with my grandmother for a while and I'd gotten sober for a while, we're talking 6 months. It's just like the longest time I've had sober. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of like, Jesus talks about this, where there's a man who has a demon and he gets the demon cast out. Mm-hmm. And then he goes about cleaning up the inside of his house, which is the inside of his body. And the demon goes out into the world and explores and doesn't find a place to rest. So it comes back, sees the house all cleaned up, and calls in a couple of its friends, and they settle back in this man. I'm in the cleaning phase of that. So I'm cleaning my stuff up, and it's actually, things are starting to look, I'm starting to be optimistic about maybe I can be sober for a while. And I got this job at this catering company, and somebody had some OxyContins. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll try it. And I did, and I liked it. And that started me using those a lot. Like
How long had you been sober up until that point?
over a year. Yeah. Now,
When the opportunity arose, it's for that. Had you come to the kind of this term, like conclusion with yourself that maybe I can manage it now?
yeah. Well, no, I didn't even, that's the thing. I thought I had a alcohol problem. I didn't have a opiate problem. Opiates came and went. I never really had an issue with that. I had an alcohol problem, see. I didn't even really care about weed anymore. I didn't really smoke any of that. I didn't care. I didn't want any of that. And then this was just something that would make me finally feel good, by the way. My life was pretty crappy, and I was just fairly depressed. And this guy had these drugs, and I just did them. And I felt awesome. That's the thing. So I started doing them a lot. And I did them for like a year. All the time. But there was a crackdown on OxyContin at some point in time. And that was about that year in. Mm-hmm. And, man, you couldn't get it anywhere. And I got sick like I had never been sick before. I thought alcohol sickness sucked. Boy, that OxyContin thing, it feels like you got broken glass inside of your veins. And everything hurts, and your back hurts all the time, and you can't think straight too. And you feel very like, take that alcohol flu feeling and multiply that by 10, and that's opiates.
And you weren't drinking at all during this point in time?
I didn't.
Only
That's
opiates?
what made me drink again. So I'm sick. I'm on like day 3 of just feeling crappy. I go to work all day, get my paycheck. And I was like, I am tired of feeling like this. And I drove up to this TGI Fridays. And I go in. I sit at the bar. I thought, if I drink alcohol, maybe it'll cut how crappy I feel. Yeah. And I ordered a shot and a beer. And the bartender he does this to hand him over. And he goes, what's the occasion? And I go, I haven't drank in over a year. And he pulls him back. And he goes, why haven't you drank? I go, I was drinking too much. And he goes, are you sure? And I go, yeah. No, I'm good. Famous last words. I'm good. And he puts him over. And man, I took that shot. And I felt it burn all the way down my throat, all the way into my stomach. And I felt guilty. And I felt the heaviest shame. Like, it was all the shame of my entire life in that moment.
Interesting.
All at once.
Interesting.
And I hated myself so much. God, I hated myself.
Why do you think you hated yourself? Like, why do you think
Because
you
here I
felt
am
guilt
doing
and
it
shame?
again. Here I am again. I beat this. It's been over a year of me not doing this. And here I am. I'm drinking again. Everyone was starting to get excited for me again. Like, no, he's actually turned a corner this time. You know? Mm-hmm. And I just threw it all away. And I know myself. I knew myself then. I knew that I'm now just a drinking. Because for me, like, drinking isn't, I'm going to go have something on Friday. It's like the minute I started drinking back then, it just meant I am drinking now. It's like a continuation thing, man. I'm just going to be drinking. So I drank the beer. I left there, went to the liquor store, which was right next door to the joint, grabbed a big 1.75 of vodka, went back to this apartment that I was renting with this other guy. I rented a room. It was his apartment. And I just drank for like a week. And I drank all my money away. I didn't go to work again. And this guy was not fooling around. He was not a drinker. He was like a gamer nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't come out of my room for like days, and I avoided eye contact with him and stuff. And he came up to me and he goes, I'm getting bad feeling from you. You're going to have to get on out of here. And I said, well, I don't even have money to pay for next month's rent anyways, so that works out. But I didn't have anywhere to go either. I was like out. And I just wanted to die. Like, here I am again. All I'm going to do is, once everybody finds out again that I'm totally destitute, everybody's helped me and done everything they possibly can. And here I am again in this place of failure. I'm such a loser. God, what a piece of crap. I'm such a piece of crap. I had the worst. I talked to myself so poorly back then, all the time. I just hated myself. I thought the world would be better off without me. And I had tried to kill myself before. We've talked about that. I'm not going to go into that here. But I had a real good plan this time. And backing up a second, there had been this church that I went to a couple of times. My aunt was invited by these friends of hers to go to this church. And she's like, I ain't going to some church. She really has a dislike for the church. And I said, I'll go with you guys. What's it like? And they were like, it's pretty good. You'll like it. I'm like, all right, chill out. I'll like it. That's a bit far, but I'll go. Because I thought that the way my aunt responded to it was so obnoxious that I thought, like, I felt bad for them. Mm-hmm. I'll go to your church. Fine. This is when I was still getting high on the Oxycontins. So I got good and high that morning and went to the church, sat in the very back, and I'm perfectly high and feeling great. I don't care. I'll sit through 3 hours of this stuff. What do I care? And they had treats out front, snatched up some treats. And this guy sat next to me. His name's Van. I later found out. And he says, hey, you haven't seen you here before. And I go, yeah, okay. And he goes, what do you think? And then I finally look over at him. I go, honestly, man, there's plenty of space here. Like, why are you right here? And I go, it's all right. And he goes, well, I hope it gets better. And he gets up and he goes up on stage because he's the pastor. Oh, great. Now I have to. And he's like, bro, there's 200 people in this place. And he's like talking towards me and I'm listening. It's fine. Whatever. I'm high. At least I got that. I don't remember what he talked about. I wasn't moved. But by the end of it, when it's all said and done, band's coming back out. I'm going to sneak on out of here. But he catches me at the door. He anticipated me leaving. I actually respected that. He caught me at the door and he goes, hey, Jonny, before you go. Yeah, what's up? And he's like, hey, what'd you think? That wasn't too bad. And he goes, think you'd come back? Now, this guy's like 20 years older than me, 30 years older than me. He's a nice man. You know, he had a genuine face about him, and he was genuinely asking me. I wasn't a complete and total douchebag. So I said, yeah, I'd come back. And he goes, see you next Sunday? I go, all right. And I hop on my motorcycle and drive. Next time I went, did the same thing, sat in the back. He did not sit next to me. Thank you. By myself in the back. And he preached, and it was better. I actually listened more. Still high, because that's what I did. I was just high now. Mm-hmm. And he caught me on the way out again. And he goes, hey, you want to do lunch? I said, sure. So we went out for lunch. Turns out he was a nice guy, and he did some cool things that I really respected. Went to this lunch place, and there was a plate glass window, and he sat with his back to the plate glass window, and I sat where I sat. And through our conversation, he told me why he did that. He goes, I get too distracted by females. And I was like, yeah? And he goes, yeah, I just don't want to be tempted that way. I love my wife. I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I never actually heard anybody express that kind of manhood to me before. I just thought it was neat. I respected that. I went back to his church a few times, and when I could go, I would go. I wasn't being moved by the Spirit, really, in any sort of like way I could have told you about then. I just kind of liked going there, and he was a cool dude, actually. I talked to him quite a bit. So anyways, fast forwarding back up to this day, I'm out of alcohol. I'm about to lose this apartment. So I come up with a pretty good plan on my motorcycle. But something in the back of my head said, give that guy a call. And it was like 10:30 at night. I called Van. And he answered the phone right away. Hey, Jonny, what are you doing? I was like, I guess it's 10:30 at night. This old man's wide awake. He sounds just totally ready. He was waiting for my call. And I go, man, I was just brutally honest. I said, I can't do this no more. And he got dead serious on the phone with me. He said, I've been waiting for this call. I got a guy that I'd like you to meet with. I can send him out to you tomorrow morning. Can you wait that long? I said, yeah. And he goes, all right. If anything changes, you call me. I'm here. I'm a phone call away. I will answer anytime. If anything changes, you call me. I said, okay. I go, well, I can make it to the morning. I'm all right. I knew I still had a little bit of alcohol, see. Next morning, 7:30 a.m., guy shows up at the house, texts me. I'm outside. I go outside. I'm now completely out of alcohol since midnight. I'm starting to feel sick already because that's how quickly it would happen when, coming off it. And there was this guy, Joel. And Joel took me on a little ride, told me about his life. And his life had enough similarities to mine that it mattered. And he's like, you hungry? I said, nah. And he goes, I'm going to stop and get some McDonald's. I'll get some for you. And I was like, all right, whatever. We roll up to this McDonald's and we're waiting in line and he's chatting and he goes, hey, do you have any drugs on you? And I had like some low grade drugs that I didn't like. And I go, yeah. And he goes, you need to get rid of that stuff. So I rolled down his window and I dumped this baggie of little pills out.
Right in the drive-thru.
And he goes, are you freaking crazy? What's wrong with you? And I was like, you said get rid of it. And he goes, yeah, like later. Don't dump it out of my truck to get us in trouble. And I was like, I'm sorry. It was funny. We still talk about that quite a bit, Joel and I. He drove me back to my house. And for the first time in my life, we get to the house, to this little apartment. And he says, do you know Jesus? I said, yeah. Well, I've been to your church. He goes, no. Do you know Jesus? And I was like, well, I don't know. And he goes, can I pray for you? He's like, I'd like you to repeat it after me if you don't mind. And I said, all right. I don't remember what we prayed, but he put his hand on my shoulder. We both tilted our heads down, and he said some words. And I repeated them. And he goes, I'm going to come pick you up today after work too. And he goes, I'm going to make some phone calls. We're going to get you set up in the right direction. And that prayer carried me through the next couple of weeks. They got me into a facility, place called Spirit of Life. Mm-hmm. It was a prison rehab. So guys would come out of prison or avoid prison by going to this place and getting off of drugs. And if they completed a 6-month program, then they might get their prison sentence communed. And I was the only guy, not a prison guy. They had connections there. They got me in. Everybody else is jail and prison. So a bunch of hard dudes. And the place was awful for the first little while. It was gross and rough. And it was 4 men to a room. Like a room about the size of this studio. Just 4 bunks. But I started learning stuff pretty quickly there. And the pastor was a former bike gang guy. And he was cool. And I respected him right off the rip. And maybe being there 2 weeks, this old man came in. I've talked about him a lot here, but he was a special dude. This old man, late 70s, he walks in. He's got a palsied arm. He's probably about 6'3", white hair. And everybody, all these prison guys, would hop up out their seat and go, "Hey, Mr. Rapp, would you like my seat?" I thought, this is crazy. And this was for some sort of group discussion, an AA type style class. And everybody speaks. And at the very end, Jack had kind of like a sort of Jordan Peterson-ish voice. Didn't match his body. But everybody, the minute he started speaking, he just cleared his voice and everybody shut up. Room of 35 guys, everybody stops talking. And Jack's like, I don't even remember what he talked about, but it was awesome. And you could have dropped a pin and it was just silent in this room while he spoke. It was powerful. I don't remember what that was either, but I knew that whatever that dude was doing, I wanted to do what that dude was doing. Yeah. And I attached myself at the hip to this guy. And I made myself, every time I seen his truck, he had a Suburban, every time I seen that Suburban come up, I'm out there, "Hey, Mr. Rapp." And I just follow him in. I just listen to him talk to everybody, and I wouldn't talk unless he allowed me to talk, unless he'd ask me directly. Until then, I would just listen to everything he said. And he took a liking to me. And a couple of months into being there, he said, "Jonny, I see a lot of potential in you. I see a lot of myself in you, too."
Fatherly figure for you.
Yep. And he said, "There's a thing going on that I've been involved in for 40 years. It saved my life. I'd like to sponsor you to go to it. It's called Came to Believe." I said, "Okay." And by then now I'm reading my Bible because that's mandatory there. And I'm praying and I'm trying to understand who God is. Because I know that I was at this point in time willing to do anything. I'm not too cool for anything anymore. I'm the homeless guy that lives in a rehab place. Mm-hmm. No more room for cool. And I said, "I'd love to go." "Of course. You did this? All right, let's do it." So he takes me to this place. It's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And on Friday, you go to your bunk and you write a deep and thorough moral inventory. Saturday morning, we get together and we sit in this little room. It's just him and I, and there's a table between us. And he goes, "All right, let's hear it." And I start at the very top, and I've probably got 7 or 8 pages stuff, like some pretty dark stuff, thoughts I had, actions I had taken that I've never told anybody else. And I read through 2 of them, and he goes, "All right, well, that's about enough." I go, "Huh?" I didn't read through 2 pages yet. I read through 2 separate things, 2 separate incidents. No, I got the picture. And he goes, "What are you willing to do?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What are you willing to do?" I really thought about it, and I said, "Anything." And he goes, and he smiles this big smile, and he goes, "That is the right answer." And I go, "All right." And he goes, "Let's step outside here." And this old man who had a stroke, so his arm didn't work real well, and his legs didn't work great either, but he walks still. But he pushes his chair back, he walks around the table, and he starts getting on his knees. He's like, "Come on." So I get on my knees, and we pray a surrender prayer together. And man, I don't remember what the exact wording of the prayer was. My eyes were closed, and I prayed it with him. And I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe so much that what we were doing right now mattered. And I didn't have some holy moment. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel tingly or magical. And when it was done, I must have sat there for an extra moment too, like waiting for something to happen. And when I opened my eyes, I looked over at him and he was smiling so big. And he had tears rolling down his eyes. And then I started crying too. And he goes, Jonny, your life is going to change. And man, he believed that. And he was so excited for it. He's like, huge things are going to happen for you, buddy. I'm so excited. And man, for a while there, like, I just wanted to believe it so much that he was right. And he started inviting me to do everything with him. He create little projects around his house for me to do. Like I did landscaping stuff for him, removed the tree, just started doing all kinds of stuff around his house. And we'd have lunch together every day. And he'd just talk about his life, things he used to do, how he got saved, what his life has been like since. And he carried my faith for me. He really believed that there was something different that had happened that day.
Had you ever had a man your whole life do that for you?
Not that I remember. And slowly but surely, things did start to change. My prayers became more sincere because he believed so much. My desire to go to church, my desire to understand the Lord changed because it had worked for him. And I believed in him so much that I thought maybe he's actually right. So I started just really trying to read the Bible to understand what the heck was going on. And the Lord started changing things in my life fast, bro. I stayed that place for 7 months. I got the little certificate. So I stayed a month longer than most of the guys that graduate. They moved me up to a leadership position there where I was opening and closing prayer sessions and opening and closing meetings and doing testimonies for new guys that would come in and leading guys through the campus. And it was like really the first time in my life where I felt like I was chosen for something. Other stuff I had always had to earn through hard work or cash.
Isn't that the beauty of the gospel?
You know, that was 16 years ago. I've never had a compulsion to drink since then. I don't have compulsions to use drugs since then. Since then, I met a woman, got married, bought a house.
Have a business. Have a son.
Got a redemption story with a boy who, in this crazy way, was when I met him and his mom, he was the exact same age as when my oldest son moved away. And I've gotten this awesome opportunity to like have this time that I missed with my oldest son. My oldest son and I have come back together and become a family again. God changed everything. And like, I didn't have to believe everything right away. I didn't have to know everything right away. I didn't know anything. And like God slowly but surely revealed himself to me in exactly the timing I needed it and did things showed me things that were very hard that I had to learn, like these deep-rooted issues as to why I would drink. Why did drinking become a compulsion for me? What is that thing deep inside of me that was missing, that I was trying to fill with alcohol, drugs, attention, accolades? What was that stuff? And over time, he's just revealed so many things to me and changed me in so many ways. We've worked on, obviously the alcohol's gone. Drugs are gone. Then we started getting to some actual root things like anger, self-value, critical self-talk. And he's helped me in my marriage to be a reliable husband, to be a good dad.
A loyal friend.
Thanks. We've been friends now for
Decade.
And I think, you know, some of the greatest compliments are compliments I get from you, where you validate the changes that I make. You see the hard work that I go through to get to them sometimes. And having spent all those years with you and having that kind of a friendship where the Lord's part of it, experience, you know, it's like it helps me experience God in this other way from a guy who has a story that in a lot of ways is similar to mine and in a lot of ways is different. It helps me understand how complex the Father's love is for all of his children and how much, no matter what we've done or what we choose to do in rejection to him, he still wants to bring us all back. And it's bananas.
Mind-blowing.
So God can make some very big changes in our lives when we finally hit whatever is that submission place where we say, where somebody says to you, or you ask yourself, what are you willing to do?
It's that act of surrender.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so hard in that moment. And then you look back and the freedom you have today, you just wonder, why the hell did that take so long?
And how, when I just sit and meditate on all where my life's at today, it supersedes all of the fantasy dreams I had built for myself of what I thought I wanted to do or how I wanted to be or what validation from certain people would mean to me. Where I sit today is such a different place than that, where a lot of those things that I thought would fulfill me now don't hold any interest. And these other things of that, like he's put in my heart, drive my every desire. And I never would have, I didn't know that this kind of relationship existed. I didn't grow up in it. And I'm just grateful God took me out of it.
If you were sitting across from somebody today who's stuck, alcohol, drug, just stuck in that loop, what would you tell them to do?
Man, I would listen to their story first. Because that's just so important.
Yeah, isn't it?
I realize now that when I was in that place, Spirit of Life place, there was a lot of guys just telling a lot of stories. There was a lot of time for that. And that's part of the reason you go to a place like that and you stay there as long as you do. It's because you need to get some of this stuff out. It's therapy.
Yeah.
That's a component. And then I would tell them about my life, like we'd just gone over, like how fundamentally broken I was and how unbelievably fulfilled I am now. And I would say the reason for that is Jesus. And I would encourage them to find that place inside of themselves to just give Jesus a chance. It's really, it's just prayer. And it's a prayer of submission. It's saying, God, in the place I'm at right now, I don't have control anymore. And I've tried to fight, and I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting. And Jonny said that you want to help me. So I want to turn my life over to you, God. I want you to come into my life and help me make the changes I'm not capable of making. And I'll do whatever you tell me to do from here, Lord. Amen. Like, that's it. It doesn't have to be, you said it to some guys the other day, it doesn't have to be some Shakespearean sonnet. God just wants your heart. Just tell him how you really feel. Just tell him what's really going on. And then want to believe. And belief will follow.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, man. Man, thank you for the details of your life, your story. Obviously, that's emotionally hard. It's emotionally draining to really dig back and really think through all these moments you've had where you had freedom and lost it and had freedom and lost it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's easy to think sometimes, what would life be like had I just figured this out back then? But I also look at it as like maybe God was in the background still protecting you from maybe success in the band would have killed you.
Oh, yeah. I think about all those things. Yeah. Speaking of the Jim Morrison thing, he died at 27. I thought, what a way to go.
Yeah.
On top of the world. What? It's so nuts. I had a lot of dumb thoughts.
The life you get to live today because of that.
Right. It's so much better than that ever would have been.
Yeah, it is. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Our prayer now and always will be, as you listen to what we're doing, that you surrender your life to Jesus. Let our stories be not something to glorify the sinful nature and the sinful choices, but rather glorify our God in heaven who chose to rescue us and redeem us from these broken, sinful choices. And our hope is always that you become the man, the woman that God created you to be, so you can help the next generation to point their lives towards Jesus. Jonny, you want to close this out?
Yeah. As always, we want to pray that you have a deep and a fulfilling relationship with Jesus, and that he blesses you all the days of your life.
Yeah, and all God's people said.
They said amen.
They sure did, buddy. Thanks, man.
Yep.